Welcome to another episode of the Make Mental Health Matter show. If this happens to be your very first time watching, thank you so much for being here. If this is your 10th, 12th, millionth, okay, I haven't had a million shows, but no matter what, thank you for coming back. As you may or may not know, this show really is to bring you resources, people resources, because oftentimes in the mental health space, there are actually a ton of resources. There are also holistic resources and people and all kinds of different modalities in the space of mental health, wellness, health, whatever you want to call it. But oftentimes we just don't know that they're available. And that is really the whole point of this show, is bringing you a person that can share their journey through whatever they have experienced, and they may give you some tools or some tips of what they've learned along the way. And that way it helps you as the viewer or listener to really identify, one, that you're not alone, and two, there are alternative ways to support your wellness, because wellness is very important. I oftentimes tell people till I'm blue in the face how important self-care is, but I forget about myself. And I have to be reminded on a daily basis, hey, Kelly, you need to take care of yourself also. And you have all of these resources and people around you that can possibly help. So I know it's not always easy to remember, but it can be, and it can be really simple. And that's why I love to bring my guests on this show who can share that information with you and or share their story, because almost every single guest that I've had, they have a reason why they do what they do now. And that's probably more powerful than somebody just going to college and getting their education and then going out into the world and trying to figure it out. But when you have a place, a story that, or a journey, whatever you want to call it, that you've gone through, it makes it that much more powerful when you're able to go and help others. So I am going to give you a little bit of information about my guest today, which I am super excited to have him on the show. So Sam Kabert, sorry if I said that wrong, you should let me know if I did, is a serial entrepreneur turned certified breathwork practitioner and keynote speaker. He is the author of the #1 best-selling book, Soul Life Balance, and host of the Soul Seekr Podcast. Sam spent the early part of his career chasing success and was named to Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list at just 31 years old. And in the past 5 years, he has courageously embraced a transformative path of self-discovery, centering his focus on prioritizing mental health. Sam is on a mission to offer tools to overcome overwhelm and encourage the rise of compassionate leadership to eradicate the glorification of hustle culture. So we are going to learn more about Sam and his practice. So Sam, thank you so much for joining me today.
Kelly, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's Sam Kabert, but thank you so much. I've been getting Kabert a lot for whatever reason. People want to pronounce it like it's French, which is cool too. It's all good. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah, for me, it's been a journey of self-discovery, which that self-discovery led to remembering, which where I'm at now, it's about acceptance. And the short version, as some people would say, the TLDR, right, would be I achieved the success that I was seeking, only to feel more numb, only to feel more depressed. And then I did a complete 180 on my life and left Silicon Valley, moved to the beach town, Santa Cruz, became a yoga instructor, breathwork facilitator, and really re-envision what it is I want out of life and how I can be of the highest and best service. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Wow, thank you for sharing that and correcting me. I oftentimes, when I'm trying to pronounce names, I'm like, should I try to say it or not try to say it? But always say this show is not about perfection. It's about really getting the information out there. And so I love this I guess concept is a word that's coming to my head, but breath work. And because I know that it's much more in depth than just teaching people breathing techniques. So, would you be willing to share I mean, you said a little bit about why you got into doing what you do now, and super cool that you teach yoga and really started to like re rephrase or like go into a different life to make things better. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Breathwork is such a big topic right now. In the past year, internet searches have gone up nearly 50% of searching for the term breathwork, but we don't necessarily know what it means because it's such a big term, and it encapsulates a lot. Because are we just talking about like intentionally and consciously being aware of the breath? Are we talking about some breath work exercises that we may have experienced in a yoga or meditation class? Or are we talking about these deep dives that are known as a breathwork journey or a breathwork ceremony, which are designed to release stored trauma within the body? So I like to simplify this term breathwork and break it into two categories. There's first breathwork exercises, which help us on a daily basis to shift into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. And the second are breathwork journeys. And this is to really stimulate a trauma response so that the ego consciousness can kind of get out of its own way and the body can have a somatic experience feeling those stored energies within the body, which include not just daily emotions, but also traumas from your entire life, so that they can be released from the cellular memory within the body. So both have its purpose, but really like what's most important in my eyes are breathwork exercises to shift into rest and digest, because that's the way that we can overcome stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and all of those things within just minutes on a daily basis. Whereas the breathwork journeys that I lead and so many other breathwork facilitators lead, that's something you could do maybe once in your life, maybe once a year, maybe once a quarter, on the high end, once a month or once a week, if you're really, really in the thick of it and working through something. But the integration of those breathwork journeys are simply those breathwork exercises that help to shift into rest and digest.
wow. I mean, that was a lot more than I even knew about it. So I'm so glad that you explained it in a way that makes sense. I'm trying to think if I don't think I ever actually did a breathwork journey. I know that I had the opportunity a couple times, but I couldn't make it. And so it is really interesting and cool that that is something that you can experience, and also it helps your body just shift from whatever trauma that you've experienced. But yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share my history with breathwork journeys. Yeah, for sure. So in 2019, it was probably February or March, and I was going through like a numbing depression for a month long, just not feeling anything. And I knew that I was going to finally hit $1 million in my business, and I was going to be named Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list that year. I could just feel it, and both of those things end up happening. I was also in an on off again relationship, which a lot of times our relationships can kind of be the catalyst to these things. So I was experiencing this numbing depression, and I did this breathwork journey. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was only getting into yoga and meditation like maybe in the past year or two. I started yoga maybe 7 or so years before that, but then stopped doing yoga because at the time, just who I was and being ridiculed by my peers for simply being a man and doing yoga. I was like, I can't do that, just societal conditioning. And I'm just like, all right, whatever. So it took a lot to like get back into being like, okay, let me allow myself to do something that maybe some of my guy friends will make fun of me for, but it makes me feel good, which now I'm a completely different person. But I think even during like 10, 15 years ago, that was a much harder time, like as a man, if you will, to lean into those edges, which is a whole nother topic. That said, I did this breathwork journey and I showed up at the facilitator's home. And first thing, it was husband and wife. And we sat there in like a circle together with some oracle cards and, and some crystals, like things I wasn't used to at the time. Now I love it all, but then I wasn't really used to it. And they started to ask me these really deep questions about what I was experiencing and how I was feeling. And it was like a therapy session. And I felt safe, and I hadn't really experienced anything like that before, which was just so crucial to go into this like one-on-one type setting in someone's home that I didn't know. And they led me through this breathwork journey where basically I was laying down with my eyes closed and eye mask, and they're playing music and different things like that. And you're breathing in and out of the mouth because that helps to activate the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. So long story short, I got to this point and I still remember it's like 5.5 years later at this point. And what is time like in experience like that? But it could have been 30 minutes in or so. All of a sudden, like I felt myself coming back into my body. I don't know where I went. I don't know what happened, but I was shaking uncontrollably, like violently, shaking so hard that I was vibrating. I wasn't even shaking. And I literally thought I was having a seizure and I was going to die. I was in so much fear and so much panic. And then all of a sudden I heard the facilitator's voice, and he could have been cueing me for a long time, but I had just came back into my body. And hearing his voice was that anchor to come back into my breath. And all of a sudden, like, it was the most profound experience of my life at that point, an ultimate bliss, what the yogis would call samadhi. And not to get too far in a tangent here, but in the West, we think of yoga as the asana, which means the postures and the movements, but there's 8 parts of yoga. And the movement is only 1/8 of that. And I think it's either the 3rd or 5th step, and it's sequential. The 8th step, like the place that all of the yoga, the meditation, the breath work, the ethical guidelines in which to live our life, all these different steps, it's to get to that 8th place of this feeling that is known as samadhi, which is basically like pure bliss and love. And that's what I felt. So leaving this ceremony, for the first time in my life, I was like, wow, this is what it feels like to feel light. I've heard people say like, oh, I feel lighter, but I didn't know what that meant. And I shifted this energy of depression to just like I'm alive. And it was so profound. That was the beginning of my experience with breathwork. And then a few years later, I became a breathwork practitioner to lead those journeys for other people myself. So that's a quick high level overview of like what a breathwork journey might be like. And for usually it's not going to be as extreme as my case in terms of like feeling like I was going to die. For some people, they might feel that. For a lot of people, they will have visions or maybe visitations from loved ones that have passed, or maybe memories that have been suppressed and repressed. There's a lot of different things that may come up.
Wow. Yeah, wow. I'm like, I just think it would be so cool to be in that where so my brain like goes 20 million miles all the time, I feel like. And I have had challenges with meditating or doing yoga and not wanting to like move on to the next step. But knowing that you have like this calm space and you're able to like have this out of body or potentially have an out of body experience, but then you come back into this calm state, and it just like shifts everything. I think the really cool part of that is that it was a husband and a wife that were doing it together, knowing that you're stepping into the space that you've never been in before, but you're open to experience it and find out what could potentially come of it. I think that I feel like a little bit in society today, we are going towards that, is that I have tried talk therapy. I've tried, all the little things. And then they're like, well, that hasn't really helped, but I want to try something new. And I want to have an experience. And I want to really figure out, like, what is this thing that's holding me back? Or what is this thing that's causing me to feel this way? And I love the fact that breathwork or a breathwork journey is able to facilitate that for people.
100%. I couldn't agree more with you. For sure.
So other than, the breath work, and I know that we're going to hopefully do some breathing exercises here. I am curious, as you've started along this journey and you really found breath work, and actually, I think I'm going to leave that question because we're going to go to a quick sponsored break because I bet it's going to go into a much bigger conversation. So we're going to go to our first quick sponsored break. And then once we get back, I will ask the question that I was about to ask. So we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break. I lost my middle sister, Carrie, to a completed suicide on February 20th, 2017.
My story, however, it isn't unique. I am a domestic violence survivor and a recovering addict. For 14 years, I was in active addiction. And because of Kelly and the work that she does and the opportunity to have my voice heard, I was able to stay clean and sober and have hit a year. I'm still here. And if it wasn't for Kelly answering my call the day that I thought I was going to take my life.
Curious, and I know that I've heard a lot in the BIPOC community, it is very hush hush. It's like one of those things that you don't talk about. Like, you literally feel like it's not a conversation you can have. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
First, shout out to Kelly, because I'm glad that she asked the question. I researched you before I went on your show, and I saw how real and authentic you were. And I just appreciate the question because it is different, and we have to have tough, courageous conversations. So yes, I always say I'm a triple diversity threat. I'm a Black woman with multiple disabilities. Now, I'm not really a threat, but to other people, I may be, because people fear the unknown and what they're uncomfortable with.
Kelly's passionate commitment to mental health awareness is a beautiful thing. It's clear in her social media posts, it's clear in the resources that she puts together, in the activities that she provides, her collaboration with organizations, and the consistent way that she continues to deliver a message encouraging people to understand that they can share openly and to break the stigma around mental health. Kelly's topics cover children and adults, talk about things that we can do as a community, things that we can do individually, and her website is packed with information and resources and all kinds of contacts that you can use to reach out, whether you're dealing with something yourself or you're looking to help somebody else who is struggling. I encourage you to check it out.
And like that, we're back. So if you happen to be just joining us, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you go back and hear a little bit about CM's story. And I was going somewhere before we almost went to the break. And so my question that came up was, you started following along this journey, and yoga was, you think about it, and a lot of men are like, I'm not going to do yoga, right? And then you have some that are like, yeah, yoga is awesome. But you decided to go into breathwork and really find out what that's all about. And lucky enough, you were in, you had a husband and wife, and had this really out of body experience that really started to shift everything for you. Now you're in a much different place, but how did that, like, that beginning really project you into wanting to learn more and do what you do now?
Yeah, for sure. So about a week or two after that, I sat with the plant medicine ayahuasca with that same couple, and the breathwork journey was kind of like an intro into their world. And I mean, I could talk about this for days. I wrote a whole book about it, and my podcast kind of started with the evolution of it. But after staying with ayahuasca just one night with the medicine, a lot of people say that medicine specifically is like 12 to 15 years of therapy packed into a single life or night. For me, it felt like a lifetime of therapy. And this message of soul life balance rather than work life balance came through. And I sat with that message for almost 2 years, which was a long time for me to sit with it before really understanding what it meant. And then that's when I wrote my fourth book entitled Soul Life Balance. But yeah, I mean, that one night with ayahuasca changed everything. From that, I took a few months to integrate some of the messages that came through, but that's what eventually led me to moving from Silicon Valley to Santa Cruz, getting out of the toxic relationship, starting to transition from the business I was in to explore other industries that were in more alignment, launching the Soul Seekr podcast and sunsetting the old podcasts and YouTube show that I had that was no longer in alignment, and just starting to go yoga daily, even sometimes like twice a day, and just thinking of my life almost as a yoga retreat instead of like going to a destination for a yoga retreat, being like, I'm just going to go yoga every single day and sometimes twice a day and just fully immerse myself in the being as opposed to the doing. Yeah.
I mean, it's so inspiring that you like really moved into that space. And I'm curious, and you don't have to share if you don't want to, but talking about, I mean, breath work and yoga and really like, I mean, ayahuasca and doing like the therapy part, right? Like an alternative type of therapy. But there, you also mentioned a relationship that was toxic. And I oftentimes, so I like to ask sometimes the hard questions, and you're more than welcome to just not say anything or pass. But I'm curious, like when you talk about toxic relationships, like what was the overarching theme, if you're interested in sharing?
Yeah, for sure. I'm an open book. I've talked about pretty much everything from my podcast in my book, just like going deep. So whatever questions you have, I'm here for it. I was out of integrity when we got into relationship. Just to be straight up, like when I started to go down the spiritual path, I called myself a recovering bro. So that gives you a glimpse into like the type of person I was, and I needed to also give myself that title to like feel like, oh, like, yeah, I'm not just some hippy dippy like spiritual person. Like I was cool before this. Like that's where I was at when I was like transitioning into spirituality. I'm so much like now it's I've really much identify with like Ram Dass's teachings of like becoming nobody, so much that I had stripped myself of all these labels and identities over the past 5 years, that now I'm like, okay, let's ground and come back into the human experience. And some of these labels and identities are important as we're building something. So it's an interesting mix there. But to answer your question, when I got into relationship with this woman, she was a cheerleader for the San Francisco 49ers, which I thought was really cool because that was my favorite football team. And I was networking with the who's who of the Niners at the same time. And within a few months of being in a relationship together, I tried to get out of the relationship because, for me, it was like, oh, this was like cool and it was fun, but, it's not really the relationship I want to be in. we didn't have a lot of things to talk about or that were similar. So it's just try and get out of it. And she didn't want that. And when I tried breaking up with her several times, she would like basically it got pretty deep where a couple of times like there were some suicidal threats from her. And I know you have your history with that. I have mine as well. I was in the room when we discovered a friend hanging from the ceiling fan. So, you know, for me, that was a big trigger. And it was interesting, like cry for help or tactic, whatever. And at the same time, I was like, she's beautiful. She loves me. I love her. Like, why am I getting tripped up? Let's make this relationship work. So for 2 years, it was her breaking up with, or no, me breaking up with her, and then her like coming back to me and me being like, okay, let's do this. The last 2 years were her breaking up with me, and then me now all of a sudden acting like the way she was acting. So the tables had shifted. And in a lot of ways, our whole entire relationship was just a power struggle. And both of us like finding this, like, you know, need to be desired. And when it wasn't there, like being alarmed. And around the time of getting into spirituality and everything, I learned about twin flames. And this was back in 2019. And I haven't watched the documentary on Netflix or whatever it is about twin flames. I've heard a little bit about it, but I think for your listeners, if you've heard of the term twin flame, or if you haven't, I'm going to explain it in the way that I was taught that resonates with me, which I think mainstream culture gets it wrong. A twin flame is different than a soulmate. A twin flame comes into your life and it's not necessarily romantic. It could be platonic as well. It could be like, you know, a sibling or maybe a parent or a child. Usually, though, it seems to be more romantic. But you come into your life together where you have like this very passionate, like good things that happen, but also very toxic. And ultimately it is because they are like your ultimate mirror to help you ascend to that future version of yourself, to surrender and go deeper and see your blind spots. Whereas I think mainstream culture sees twin flames as like, oh, I want to find my twin flame. And they see it as like a soulmate. And it's like, okay, if you understand that when you're calling in your twin flame, there's going to be a lot of chaos and that you're not actually supposed to be like with this person. It's so you can evolve to your highest and best self. But people get stuck at that place where I was stuck with her. So we actually had kind of a beautiful separation in that I was learning about twin flames. I was sharing it with her and she was resonating with it so much. And, you know, it unfortunately ended in 2020 around January, where it was kind of in a toxic way, and we haven't even spoke since then. And it's interesting this comes up too because I've told this story a lot, but recently in the past couple of months I've been feeling like, you know, it would be nice to reach out to her and reconnect, not in that like, you know, I miss her, I want to be with her type of way, but just be like, hey, how's your life changed? Like, what's going on with you now? I'd love to hear what's going on with you and share what's going on with me. And I've been wrestling with that the past couple of weeks, actually. So that's a high level of what went on with the relationship. But we were such great teachers for each other. And I mean, I just have so much respect for that woman and just that relationship so much.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing, and also the description of twin flames, because I also am not like overly familiar with the meaning, but I do know that it's not like soul based or like your soulmate based, but and there's a lot of conflict. So I can imagine that when you come together with that type of person and then you do have the conflict that happens, and it's that control balance is challenging, I think, in all relationships. But when there's too much of it, then you never get a chance to like settle, and that's really, really hard. So I appreciate you sharing your story. And I think it's just important that we as humans talk about our experiences and we know what we've been through. And I mean, hearing you also and your experience with suicide, it's definitely not something you ever want to experience, nor do you want to find somebody after they died by suicide. And that can be very traumatizing. Also, being able to shift into a new life, I guess, is what's coming up for me, of being able to find the space that you feel like you truly fit. And that, I think, is really, really cool. And now you're teaching other people how to be open and find what works for you, whether people have a problem with it or not. And one other thing that popped into my head, and this, you were saying in 2020, it's like it almost happened at like not the perfect moment, but then if you would have shifted into like the pandemic, say, and potentially stuck with each other, like what would that end up looking like? And that was something that just popped into my head.
Yeah, no, you tapped into it. I mean, this is getting really esoteric, and I'm not sure how woo you and your audience like to go, but even think of the Oscar-winning film Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is about different timelines, or the Mandela effect, which talks about how like we're shifting timelines and we remember things differently. Like an example would be Jif or Jiffy peanut butter, Looney Tunes being spelt differently. Recently, Chick-fil-A, a lot of people are noticing the spelling being different. You can Google the Mandela effect and see it. And it's kind of like the movie The Matrix. Like we can think of it as a glitch within this matrix. When we switch a timeline, like something changes, and we're like, on a collective consciousness level, we're like, no, I remember this differently, but it's a glitch of entering into a different timeline. So that gets super esoteric. But the reason why I bring that up is because I actually do believe, since I had this spiritual awakening in 2019, like my version of reality shifted into the pandemic happening, and that there's another version of me living out in the timeline I was on, where the pandemic and the lockdowns would have never happened. And that's where it gets super woo and out there. But having said that, I know we're probably getting closer to time on this podcast. So you want to jump into some breath work?
Yeah, we're going to go to our last quick sponsor break. And then once we get back, then we're going to do the breath work. So we'll go do that really quick. And then we'll be right back with some breath work. So don't go away, because you want to be here for that part. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Steve Ramona with the TV show Together We Serve, Fridays, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on E360 TV. Together We Serve.
Hi, everyone. I am Sinead from Brador. I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa. Please join me in my Power Hour every Sunday, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on E360 TV. Mwah.
All right, and we're back. Super excited for this, to do some of the breath work. So if you happen to be joining us, make sure you go back and watch the first half of this. But yes, I would love to jump into doing some breath work.
Sweet. Thanks for asking, Kelly, too, because I don't get asked often to lead breath work, but for some reason, right before you asked about it, I was like, I feel like this one we should lead some breath work. So we're definitely on the same page. All right. So what we're going to do is a combination of a few things, and mostly we'll dive into some breathing in and out of the mouth. I'll guide us all through it every step of the way. So not too much to remember now. I just like to give a little bit of an overview. This is going to be like, we can think of it as a microdose version of a breathwork journey. If a breathwork journey is an extreme cathartic release, what we're going to do right now is just allow ourselves to feel some of the energies within our body and just to access the inner peace, and simply understanding that emotions are energy in motion, and that our body has a 90-second physiological response when we experience these energies. It's called the 90-second rule. So if we can allow ourselves to feel these emotions as opposed to numb, distract, and avoid them, then those emotions, those energies that are in motion, can move through our body and they'll get stored in the body. So most likely you're going to have some things come up, but I just want to remind you that you're safe. With that, the style of breath that we'll be doing is inhaling and exhaling through the mouth. It can be called a lot of different things, but circular breath is a really popular term. And basically what that means is it's a connected breath, that there's no pause between the inhale and the exhale. If you can allow your belly to expand on the inhale, as if it's like putting air into a balloon, and then the balloon gets bigger when you inhale, that's kind of like our belly. Inhaling up, let the belly expand, and then on the exhale, bring the belly to the spine. If for any reason that's challenging, forget all about that and just focus on inhaling and exhaling through the mouth. Other than that, I'll cue you every step of the way. Do you have any questions, Kelly?
No, I'm ready.
All right, cool. So if you're driving or anything at all, just you can breathe with us maybe, but don't close your eyes, or just better yet, pause and come back. For Kelly and for myself and anyone listening that's ready to dive in, we'll just find a comfortable seat. So allowing yourself to sit down, feeling your feet on the floor, sitting up straight, letting your chest be broad, feeling your palms on your lap, and just bringing your awareness to your eyes. Notice if your gaze is outward a few feet ahead, and can you bring it forward around your eyes, just like an inch in front of your eyes? And notice if there's any tension, just gently releasing that tension and rolling the eyes up as if you were to look at that space in between your eyebrows. And through the nose, inhaling all the way up, sipping in a bit more air at the top, inhaling up, and through the mouth, audible sigh, making noise as you exhale. Through the nose, inhaling all the way up, sipping in a bit more air at the top. Hold the breath, roll back the eyes, continue to hold the breath, and just allow yourself to feel. Through the mouth, exhale, let it go. And now through the mouth, inhaling up. Through the mouth, exhaling, letting it out. And continue to breathe just like that. Inhaling through the mouth as you let your belly expand, and exhaling through the mouth. On the inhales, letting the belly expand. And on the exhales, imagine you're blowing out candles on a birthday cake that are a few feet in front of you. You really need to push that air out. So on the inhales, inhaling up. And on the exhaling, blowing the air out. You can try to let the belly expand on the inhales. And on those exhales, just bringing the belly back to the spine. Maybe picking up the pace, breathing a little bit more intense with big inhales, and then really focusing on blowing the air out on those exhales. And as you continue to breathe like this, just notice these different energies that are moving through your body. We're not going to get lost in any stories or naming the emotions. We're just going to allow ourselves to land in our body and notice how we feel. We should feel something, maybe a little bit of a tingling or whatever it is. just allowing yourself to stay in your body. It's safe to feel. Reminding yourself of that and just continuing to breathe just like this. A little bit more. You're almost there. You're doing great. And on the next inhale, inhaling all the way up, big inhale up. Through the mouth, blow the air out. Inhaling all the way up. Sipping a bit more at the top. Hold the breath. Roll back the eyes as if you're looking at your third eye, that space in between your eyebrows. Continuing to hold the breath and just feel. You're doing great. Continuing to hold the breath. And through the mouth, exhaling, letting it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. As slow as you can through the nose, inhaling all the way up through the nose. And through the nose, sipping in a bit more air at the top. Hold the breath, roll back the eyes, sitting up straight, and just allowing yourself to feel as you hold the breath here. And through the mouth, exhaling, blowing it all out. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Big inhale up through the mouth. Blow the air out through the mouth. And recommitting to the breath. Big inhales and exhales through your mouth. Circular breath, meaning there's no pause between the inhale and exhale. So just as deep as you can, sucking that air in as you expand the belly. And when you blow the air out, bring in the belly back to the spine. That's it. Just like that. Focusing on big inhales and exhaling, blowing that air out. Just allowing yourself to notice how you're feeling, not getting caught in any stories, any memories, just noticing. And if you find your mind circling with different thoughts, just gently imagining those thoughts to drift on by. And just a few more deep breaths, just like that. Big inhales through the mouth and imagining you're blowing out candles on a birthday cake that's a few feet in front of you, sucking all the air in on the inhale and blowing those candles out on the exhale. Just reminding yourself that you're safe. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Now on your next inhale, inhaling all the way up, sipping in a bit more at top. Hold the breath, roll back the eyes. Just continue to hold the breath. Nothing to do, nowhere to be. Just allowing yourself to be in this moment, in your body. Exhale, let it go. Let it go, let it go, let it go. And through the nose, slowly inhaling all the way up. Sipping in a bit more at the top. Holding the breath, rolling back the eyes, and just continue to hold the breath. It's safe to feel. Just asking yourself if there are any messages that want to come through. Not overthinking it, just letting the first thing that comes through to land for you and trusting in that. And exhale, let it go. And just gently letting your breath return to its natural state and rhythm and flickering your eyes back open when you're ready. Welcome back, Kelly. Welcome back, everyone. That's just a quick little exercise. And there's so much more to be said on that. But yeah, I could answer any questions if you have them, or your audience can reach out to me because there's a lot more to talk about that.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know my body got like a little tingly. And then I was thinking, I was like, I hope I'm not breathing too loud so it's not going over what you're saying. Like those were the thoughts that I was having. But also then the like rolling your eyes back and really just like sitting with that, right? Like I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this again and do it again when I'm not worried about the microphone being on. I guess I should have turned that off. But I just so appreciate you coming on and sharing this experience, your experience, why you do what you do. And I would love for you to share with the audience how they can find you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me and sharing this and all the work you're doing. I love those ads, by the way, too. Those were just so beautiful and warming to the heart. My website is samkabert.com. That's Kabert. And here it is on the screen, samkabert.com. Everything there from my Breath Club, which is a community membership. It's the low cost thing for community that people want to practice soul life balance and breath work. That link is there. The workshops and keynotes I do, podcasts, all the things. My new book is called Overcome the Overwhelm. It's just $5 on Amazon. And in it, I'm teaching the 6-step breath process to access inner peace. And it's the 6 steps you can do within 90 seconds so that you can go from stressed and feeling anxiety and all of that to just inner peace, kind of like what we just did. And one last thing I'll say too, because I forgot to mention this, but I actually really struggle with meditation as well. I think you mentioned that, Kelly, and for you, and I bet the listeners too, you can see how after doing a simple breath work exercise like we just did, can just so easily get you into a meditative state, even if it's just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, but just a few minutes, because it takes you right there. Whereas if we're just sitting in meditation, it can take like the full 20 minutes just to get to where we just got, you know?
Yeah, no, that definitely, I mean, and it calmed me down. Like I can just even feel my body is much more calm than where I was before. And I know I told you before we came live, I was rearranging my office before we jumped on. And so now I'm like, I feel really calm and really good. So yeah, any final words you want to share?
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is, it really is also simple. As humans, we overcomplicate everything we can. And when we can come back to this feeling of, oh, wow, it is simple that we might be feeling in this moment right now, that's when we can have those shifts in our life. And when we can build that awareness to notice when we're overcomplicating it, then we can find the tools that work for us to get back to that gnosis of, wow, it is oversimple. It is so simple. And I do tend to overcomplicate it. And most importantly, that's okay. I'm going to release any judgment and guilt around that.
I love that. And thank you so much for being my guest. I so appreciate you being on.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah. All right, y'all. That was another amazing episode of Make Mental Health Matter. I really hope that you had a chance to practice that breath work. If you didn't, you can always go back and listen or watch. Again, we are on E360 TV and Dream Vision 7 radio. So wherever you happen to watch or listen this, you can always go back or just go to the website, makementalhealthmatter.org. It's under communication. So if that's where you want to go, we have all the information about where the show airs and where you can tune in. So you can go check that out if you want to go back and do the breath work, or you could sign up for Sam's Breath Club, which sounds really cool. So again, his website is Sam. It's SAM Kabert, KABERT.com. So jump on there and learn more about what he does, about his breath club. And you never know, there may be those moments that this could be the thing that can help you get to that next thing or that next level that you are trying to get to. And I know personally, just breathing, learning how to breathe has been really impactful in my life. And I know that sounds kind of weird because we naturally, or we have to breathe, like our body makes us breathe. But when you intentionally breathe and you have those moments that maybe are feeling overwhelmed, or you have anxiety, or you just are having those traumatic responses, breathing can help you in those moments. And oftentimes that's where your brain is triggered, and then you use one of these practices at that moment to reshift your brain. And I know, at least for me, it has helped significantly in my life, knowing how to intentionally breathe. So go check it out. And I am just so grateful for you being here. No matter what you do, make sure you come back next week and check out a new show. I've got really amazing guests that are lining up. So I will see you back next Monday. Bye, y'all.